was a warm summer evening in 1997, the kind where the air feels heavy with the scent of freshly cut grass and the faint buzz of cicadas fills the quiet streets. Emily Carter, a bright-eyed 12-year-old with an adventurous spirit, had decided to take a short walk to the corner store to grab an ice cream cone before dinner. Her parents were in the backyard, tending to the garden, and she promised she'd be back in 10 minutes. The town was small, almost sleepy, where everyone knew everyone else, and nothing seemed out of place. Yet that night, as Emily skipped down the cracked sidewalk, humming a tune, the ordinary world began to feel just a little off, though no one noticed it yet. By the time Emily reached the store, the neon sign buzzed faintly above the door, casting a pale light over the sidewalk. She pushed the door open, the little bell jingling as she stepped inside. Inside, the shop smelled like a mix of candy and old wood, the shelves stacked neatly with snacks and soda cans. A couple of familiar faces waved from behind the counter, and Emily smiled back, reaching for her favorite chocolate ice cream. But when she turned to pay, the shop seemed suddenly colder, quieter. Shadows stretched oddly across the floor, and the faint sound of a door creaking somewhere outside made her glance nervously toward the street. Then, in a blink, she was gone. Outside the store, the neighborhood carried on as usual. Streetlights flickered on, a dog barked somewhere down the block, and the hum of a distant car engine faded into the night. But Emily never returned home. Her parents, growing worried after only a few minutes, rushed outside to search the streets. Neighbors were alerted, flashlights swung through the empty alleys, and police officers arrived to comb the area, calling her name into the darkness. Yet there were no footprints leading away, no tire tracks, nothing that hinted at where she had gone. The only evidence of her presence that night was the faint echo of a bell from the corner store, and an unshakable feeling that something unseen had slipped silently into the small town, taking Emily with it. As the years went by, Emily's disappearance became a shadow over the small town, a wound that never fully healed. The initial chaos of police searches and neighborhood patrols faded, leaving behind only fading posters and yellowing newspaper clippings plastered to telephone poles and shop windows. Each year, her parents kept vigil in quiet desperation, refusing to give up hope. But the community slowly settled into a fragile acceptance that Emily might never be found. Children were warned to stay close to home. Strangers were eyed suspiciously, and whispers of what might have happened to her became a constant, unspoken background hum in the town's daily life. Every summer, the anniversary of her disappearance brought a sense of eerie remembrance. Friends, neighbors, and family would gather near the corner store where she had last been seen, lighting candles and leaving flowers, frozen in a moment that refused to move forward. The store itself had changed owners, but the memory of that night lingered like a ghost, whispered among townsfolk who couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's presence still lingered there. Some swore they heard the faintest sounds of a child's laughter late at night. Others claimed shadows moved strangely in the corner of their eyes. But all were dismissed as tricks of memory and imagination. Yet no one could completely ignore the unease that had settled over the town. Despite the passage of time, the search for Emily never truly ended. Every tip, every strange sighting, and every reported clue was pursued with the same cautious hope, though none led to answers. Detective files grew thick with notes, photographs, and unsolved leads, each one a reminder of the mystery that refused to die. Families in the town spoke in hushed tones about the unknown. Children grew up haunted by the story of the girl who vanished without a trace, and Emily's name became more legend than reality, a chilling reminder that some mysteries never truly fade, no matter how much time passes. By 2010, the corner store had changed hands several times, but none of the new owners had stayed long. That summer, the store was quietly managed by Mr. Jenkins, a reserved man in his 60s with a calm demeanor and a knack for noticing the smallest details. The town had moved on, or at least tried to. But Mr. Jenkins often felt the weight of its unspoken stories pressing in on him. He would arrange shelves late at night, dusting off forgotten corners, and sometimes catch himself staring at the spot where Emily had disappeared 13 years earlier, imagining her skipping through the doorway with her bright smile. One rainy evening, just as the orange glow of streetlights began reflecting off the wet pavement, the bell above the door jingled unexpectedly. A young woman stepped in, drenched and trembling, carrying an air of quiet urgency. She didn't look at the shelves or the snacks. Her eyes were fixed on something deeper, as if she were searching for a presence she hadn't seen in years. Mr. Jenkins noticed the way she hesitated, her fingers twitching nervously, and the hairs on the back of his neck rose instinctively. There was something about her, the way she carried herself, the distant look in her eyes, that made the familiar hum of the store feel suddenly off. The woman walked slowly toward the counter, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you remember her?" she asked, almost more to herself than to Mr. Jenkins. He blinked, puzzled, and leaned closer. She froze, turned her gaze directly toward him, and spoke a single word that made the blood run cold. "Emily." In that instant, the ordinary store seemed to warp around them. The fluorescent lights flickered, the rain outside sounded sharper, and the air itself felt heavier, as if holding its breath. Mr. Jenkins felt a chill settle into his bones. Something long buried had just resurfaced, and he couldn't yet understand whether it was a memory, a warning, or a truth far more horrifying than he could imagine. The moment the word "Emily" left her lips, Mr. Jenkins' hands shook slightly as he reached for the phone. He dialed the police, his voice trembling as he explained the situation, but the young woman didn't move. She stood frozen, eyes wide, and darting toward the corners of the store, as though she could sense something lingering in the shadows. When the authorities arrived, her demeanor didn't change. If anything, it grew more intense, more haunted. Detectives leaned in, notebooks ready, as she began recounting details that no one outside the Carter family could have known. Her voice was soft, almost melodic, yet every word carried a weight that pressed on the room like a storm cloud about to break. She spoke of a cabin deep in the woods, miles beyond the town's limits, hidden behind overgrown trails and dead branches that seemed to claw at anyone daring to enter. Emily had been kept there, she said, by a stranger who no one had suspected. A man who blended into the town's everyday life, whose face passed unnoticed in crowds, whose smile hid darkness. The cabin had long been abandoned, but the memories of it lingered, etched in the woman's mind like carvings in wood. She described the faint sounds of a girl crying, the scuff marks on the floorboards, and a diary stuffed beneath a loose floorboard where Emily had recorded every fleeting thought of her captivity. Every word sent shivers down Mr. Jenkins' spine. It felt as if the cabin itself was present in the room, watching, breathing. As the detective scribbled notes frantically, The woman's voice trembled but did not falter. She spoke of moments so precise, so horrifyingly ordinary, that the story became almost unbearable to listen to. She claimed that late at night, the sounds of Emily's voice had somehow reached her, a whisper carried by the wind. Or perhaps something darker, something beyond comprehension. Mr. Jenkins couldn't shake the feeling that the shop, the streets outside, even the quiet town itself, was connected to the mystery in ways no one could explain. The air seemed charged, heavy with secrets, and every shadow in the corners of the store felt alive. The revelation wasn't just shocking. It was as if the past had come crashing into the present, demanding to be noticed, demanding to be feared. Authorities immediately organized a search of the cabin deep in the woods, guided by the woman's precise directions. The forest was thick, the underbrush tangled and suffocating, forcing officers to hack through branches as they went. Every step seemed to echo, as if the trees themselves were watching, listening. When they finally reached the cabin, it was nothing more than a weathered, decaying structure, its windows shattered, paint peeling, and doors hanging crooked on their hinges. The air around it was heavy and still, and the faint smell of damp earth mixed with something far more unsettling, an odor that no one could quite place, but that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. Inside the cabin was a chilling time capsule. Dust covered the floorboards, but hidden beneath loose panels were remnants of the past, a small diary, scribbled with the words of a frightened child, old photographs of Emily, some torn and others strangely intact, and even cassette tapes. Their labels faded and cryptic. It was as though the cabin itself had preserved the fragments of her life, a haunting shrine to her years of captivity. Detectives pored over every item, trying to piece together the story, yet the most crucial piece, the girl herself, was gone. The realization hit like a cold wave. Someone or something had moved her, leaving behind only memories and echoes of the horrors she had endured. Mr. Jenkins couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't finished. Even after leaving the cabin, the woman's words echoed in his mind, and the town seemed different, heavier somehow, as if the mystery had seeped into its very streets. At night, he swore he could hear faint whispers in the wind, faint giggles or cries that vanished as quickly as they appeared. The diary, the photographs, the recordings, they were all warnings, fragments of a story that refused to be fully told. And somewhere, just beyond the reach of the forest, Emily's fate remained a shadow, hidden but palpable, leaving everyone who had glimpsed it with a gnawing unease and the unshakable sense that some secrets are never meant to be solved. And to this day, no one truly knows what happened to Emily Carter. The cabin remains abandoned, the diary and photographs locked away, and the forest keeps its secrets tightly hidden. Some say on quiet nights, you can still hear her voice carried on the wind, calling, pleading, or perhaps warning. Her disappearance wasn't just a tragedy. It was a reminder that some mysteries never truly end, and some shadows never fully fade. So, the next time you walk past an empty store or hear a whisper where no one is, remember Emily, because maybe, just maybe, she's still trying to be heard.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.